viewers. Today I'm going to continue on with my series of films on 1972 and finishing up this month's segment, which I entitled European Auteurs. This will be the sixth and last of the films. The other five are in those box sets or Blu-rays in the background there. But today we're talking about The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie, and this is directed by Luis Bunuel, starring Fernando Rey, Jean-Pierre Cassel, Stéphane Audran, and Bull-Auger, along with many other actors that are very familiar to people who have seen a lot of Louis Buñuel's films. And this is out of this box set, this Criterion box set that came out, I believe, in January of 2020. And this is a comedy. This is a very one of the most acclaimed films that Louis Buñuel ever made. It won the Academy Award for Best Foreign Language. It is a comedy. I think it's the funniest movie of his, at least of his, that I've ever seen. It has a buoyancy reflective of the title. It has a lot of charm. It's about a group of six upper-class friends, wealthy people who spend most of the movie trying to find a place to eat. They're constantly being interrupted. They go to one of the friends' house for dinner, and then the friend comes down and says, "What are you doing here today? Tomorrow's the dinner." And that's in the beginning, the opening scene, and then we see that sort of repeated in variations. For instance, the women go to a very busy tea room. They order tea. The waiter leaves. The waiter comes back and says, "I'm sorry, but we're out of tea." And of course, they're flabbergasted. "Well, we'll have coffee." "Oh yes, I'll get you coffee." And then he returns in a bit and tells them, "I'm sorry, we're out of coffee as well." And very strange things happen because in the same scene, a soldier who's sitting by himself at a nearby table comes over and says, would you like to hear my life story? It's a little bit long, but it's very interesting." And so they say, "Yeah, go ahead." And he does tell a really interesting story. And there's very much a sense of fun in this movie, but beneath the surface there is this death, the stories of murders and ghosts reappearing, and it's very much a movie, as Jean-Claude Carrière, the screenwriter, says, is very much of its time. It's post-May 1968. This was the big rallies and protest marches in Paris, and Buñuel and Carrière were in Paris at the time, and the protesters marched down the street where Buñuel was able to look down from his hotel balcony. And then in the morning, Carrière says they went out to look to see what was up, and looking at barricades, and they saw all these slogans written on walls, and these anarchy kind of slogans that harken back to Louis Buñuel's days in Paris in the 1920s with Salvador Dali and the other surrealists. And these were actually slogans from that movement in Paris in the 1920s. And of course, Buñuel was very sympathetic, but he never liked violence. So, but what Jean-Claude Carrière emphasizes is that even though this film is not about that, you can't. The events and the impact it had on people throughout Europe seeps into the movie. So beneath the surface of these friends, we have just a whole lot of hypocrisy, of privilege, and of looking down at the lower classes. We have drug dealing. We have murder. One of the friends is from a fictional country in South America called Miranda, where clearly a fascist country. He's being haunted by terrorists, and terrorism being another very much part of the times. And so the movie is a sort of a string of anecdotes, some longer, some shorter, but it's all tied together by these friends. And involving such strange, everything looks normal, but it's strange, there's something off. And then we see dreams, and we see dreams within dreams. And but the way Bunuel presents dreams, we can't really tell if it's the dream or not. Dreaming is sort of like an extension of reality in Louis Bunuel's mind. And there's so many surprises. I'm not going to tell any more, and I've only told a couple, but there is, the film is just, and I've seen it several times, and every time I see it, I'm surprised by something else. It has a great rhythm to it, a sense of pace. Nothing goes on too long, and we immediately go to something else. But it all seems to be tied together. And when I saw it in 1972, I was somewhat perplexed by it because I didn't really understand what Bunuel was up to. I had already seen many Bunuel films before this, so it wasn't something new to me. But this film is a little bit different than some of the other Bunuel films. It's sort of loosely formed. The Milky Way, Phantom of Liberty also had this kind of episodic kind of nature to it, although this one is tied together by these six friends. And it's such a, there's so much richness of detail in the film, and the visual sense, and the supplements in this Criterion edition has, they say how much, and Jean-Claude Carrière says Bunuel thought in terms of visuals and how much he put into the effort that he put into framing every shot. And he stuck to the script, but when they were on location, that's when he decided how he was going to shoot each scene. The actors loved him. They had so much fun making this movie. They all thought the screenplay was fantastically funny. and Bunuel was 72 years old when he makes Discreet, Charming, and Bourgeois. And he had the greatest late career of any of the great filmmakers, this being one of those. And I mean, I'm 72, and I can't imagine making a major motion picture, having the zest for something like that. And because the movie is so youthful, it feels so modern. So it's almost made like the rest of the films in this segment of European auteurs. It seems like they have this timeless quality. So we get a lot of great supplements in this one of the three films, and I think it's about 3 hours worth of supplements, including an 100-minute biography of Bunuel, where we see him through the years and from the time he was born in Spain and all through the travails of his career, because he was, as a film director, he was kind of a late starter. He had this fantastic surrealist L'Age d'Or that was scandalous and banned and not seen, I think, in Spain till like 1980 after Franco, and in other countries as well. And then he comes to Hollywood. He was in Spain when the Civil War. Another one of his good friends was the poet Lorca, who was assassinated by the forces of Generalissimo Franco, who Bunuel went into exile to get away from. He ends up during the war, and up until I think around 1949, he's in Hollywood, and he had many friends, including George Cukor, and he couldn't find his place in Hollywood. It was just too controlling, but he never made a movie in Hollywood. And through all those years, he also worked for Museum of Modern Art, MoMA, in New York City for about 3 years, but then his left-wing anti-Franco passed, and he was associated with the communists during the Civil War. And he was, this was in the onset of the blacklisting, and he was, blacklisted from working at MoMA. He had to resign. So eventually he ends up in Mexico, becomes a Mexican citizen in 1949, and makes a whole slew of movies in Mexico. I've seen most of them through the years in museums, and this is my current holy grail. Give us restorations of some of these great Mexican films. He made El, The Criminal Life of Archibald del Cruz, Los Abodados. There's so many movies he made in Mexico, and he never felt at home in Mexico, but he was able to reestablish his film career there. And then in the 60s, he's allowed back in Spain to make Viridiana, which was in the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival. And he had big successes. Belle de Jour with Catherine Deneuve was a big success, probably his biggest commercial success. A great movie. And he made Tristana, Milky Way. Serge Silberman loved him and produced all these later films. And there's some other supplements too. We get to hear from all the actors, and like I said earlier, they all love to work with him. It was so much fun. They would make any kind of a Stefan Audran says I would do anything. He'd call me, and I'll be there. How big a part doesn't matter. And then we get a great booklet in this Criterion set on. There's an essay on each of the films in the set, and the one on Discreet Charm is by Adrian Martin, one of the great film critics of our time, and he just a terrific essay. And I also found his website. I never knew of his website before. It's called filmcritic.com.au, and it seems like it gathers everything he ever wrote about film. And he wrote long form essays. He wrote individual movie reviews. So that's a great resource, and I've only scratched the surface of it. Highly recommend it. So that, like I say, this is the end of the 6 films of European auteurs that I've covered this month. And the incredible thing is, I could have chose 6 other European films to spotlight. There was a whole bunch of foreign films that got some wide release in the U.S., at least in big cities, including Fassbinder's in 1972, including Fassbinder's The Merchant of Four Seasons. Wertmiller's, I think it's their first feature, The Seduction of Mimi with Giancarlo Giannini. That is a wild film. Jean Troll did the New Land, which was a sequel to the Immigrants, about the immigrant experience in the U.S. So hopefully I'll get to some of those, and many more. So hopefully I'll get to some of those sometime in the coming months. What was my favorite? I always try to wrap up what my favorite was. Well, I got a tie with this one between Fassbinder's The Bitter Tears of Petra von Kant and Discreet Charm of the Bourgeois. They are like gifts of cinema. they can reinvigorate your enthusiasm for cinema, because that's what they're about. They're about how you tell stories visually. They're about how you can take your own vision of life and your own experiences and give them cinematic form. Okay, so that'll wrap this up. Thanks a lot for everybody who listened. I do appreciate it. Comments are welcome. Take care.